Hey guys, it's Alice. Welcome to my channel. So this video covers a half skull makeup look. You may recognize this look from my home photo shoot video, and since it's Halloween, I decided to share the full makeup tutorial with you guys. Hope you enjoy. So I've done my base and my eye makeup just because I want to focus on the skull makeup look. I'm dipping into my Urban Decay Ultra Basics eyeshadow palette and using the shade Faith, which is a light brown. I am mapping out where I want the skull makeup to go. So I'm starting off with the teeth first. I'm drawing a horizontal line from the corner of my mouth to around the middle of my cheek. And now I'm drawing small vertical lines along the horizontal line that I just drew, just so I know where to roughly place the teeth when I draw them in. And then I'm slowly moving to the forehead area, and as you can see, I'm literally feeling the contours of my bone and just really trying to understand where my bone sits, and this helps me map out the shape of the skull I'm drawing. And since I'm using my actual bone and skull as my reference, I think it makes the whole makeup look more realistic. But I will say I am taking artistic license with this skull makeup look because I'm not going for realism. I'm taking the more creative approach to the skull makeup than the actual skull anatomy. I'm using water activated face paint to paint the skull makeup look, so I'm dipping my brush into a pot of water, and I will recommend to have a pot or mug of water with you just so you don't have to run to the sink every time you have to wet your brush, unless you want the exercise. Using a wet brush, I'm dipping it into the white face paint and then I'm brushing it over my hand just to get the excess paint off. And now I'm painting a light wash of the white face paint on top of where I drew the skull. I didn't want the skull makeup to be so white and contrasting to the other half of the face. I still wanted some skin tone to be seen underneath the white. So that's why I'm starting with a light wash of the white face paint, and then I slowly build up the opacity. Using a brush with the face paint, I did find it a bit streaky, so I decided to use a beauty blender just to blend it all in. Taking a dry brush, I'm dipping it into the black and dark brown shades of the same palette, using the two colors to create the shadows and contours of the bone. I wanted to slowly build up the color, getting to that desired depth that I want for the skull shadows. I'm using the brown shade because I want to put back the warmth into the shadows, and because I want to create the illusion of the skull fading back into my skin around the edges. I switched to a flatter brush because I found it easier to really get into the edges of the skull. I'm quickly redrawing the horizontal line because it was brushed away when I was working in that area. I also mixed a bit of black face paint with the black shadows just to define the skull a bit more. Now I'm using a small flat brush dipped in white face paint, and I'm carefully painting the teeth. I'm using the teardrop method, and this is where you draw a teardrop shape but make the base more flatter to replicate a tooth shape, and the tail end a bit longer and thicker so it looks like the tooth roots. When you're happy with the teeth shape, go over it again with the white face paint just to define the teeth and to bring out the white brilliance as well. I will say for me, getting the teeth right was the hardest part of this makeup look. I made many mistakes while filming this look, so don't be too disheartened when it doesn't go to plan. Practice makes perfect, and since we're using face paint, it's very easy to rub out and start again. I'm now using an even smaller brush than the one I was using for the teeth, and I dipped it into the black and brown eyeshadows, and I'm going around the edges of the teeth just to really define them. And so I literally go back and forth between the black and white brushes that I'm using, getting the teeth to the desired shape and opacity that I want them in. I am literally such a perfectionist. I spent a good hour trying to get the teeth right here, but by the end result, I'm pretty happy with them. And so now I'm taking the same detailed brush in the white shade, and I'm going around the edges of the skull, and I'm doing this to create some highlights within the makeup look. I then take a bigger brush to blend out the sharp edge of the highlight. Looking at my references, I wanted to add that pointed eye socket shape, sort of creating that otherworldly feel to the whole makeup look. So I took the same flat brush I used for the black shades before, and following my bone structure, I drew the brush up my nose, flicking it off just above my eyebrow, and then ran the brush along the inner socket of my eye. And now I'm just putting a few more details on the skull to give it a more realistic and 3D effect than a flat 2D drawing. What actually really helped me when I was drawing on the details, I had a reference photo of an actual skull, and that really helped me see what particular details I wanted to add to this skull makeup look. The last detail I added to the skull half of the makeup look was the nose. I felt it was just missing something and I wanted to create that little moment in the middle of the face. Finally, the skull half is done and I can move on to finishing up the whole look. I'm just adding some concealer to blend in the skin tone and the white paint where they meet. Using this Smashbox lipstick in a burnt orange shade, I'm applying it to my lips on the same side as the skull. Since my Smashbox lipstick is running out, it's very transparent, which is why I'm applying it to this side of the lips because I plan to draw 2 more teeth on top of the lipstick. Taking my Fenty lipstick in the same burnt orange shade, but much more pigmented than the Smashbox since it is newer, I'm applying it to the glam side of the face where there is life and bright colours, and so I'm trying to create an ombre effect, but in this case the colour fades away into the skull. I'm now adding 2 more teeth on top of the faded lipstick using the same technique as before, and I don't think it matters too much if the lipstick smudges around on this particular side. I want to create the effect of the 2 halves bleeding together as if you don't know where which side starts and the other finishes. I added a bit of black shadow in the corner of my mouth and faded it back into the burnt orange shade just to create a bit more depth where the teeth start. Adding a lash just to the glam side, I really wanted to show that contrast between the 2 halves of the face, and definitely when I do a glam look, the lashes always complete it. So I wanted to create that feeling of one side complete while the other not so much because it's a skull. Now I'm adding the last few details, cleaning up the skull side, especially around the eye area. I'm putting a bit more eyeshadow where I feel it may have rubbed away when I was working on it, and I decided to at least add some mascara to the skull eye just to define it a bit more. For the last step, I'm adding a mixture of the black eyeshadow and face paint to my neck and carving out my jawline as well, just to really define the area and create that sharp jaw we all want. So this is it. This is the completed skull makeup look. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up. Comment below if you have any other questions about this look or if you have any other video requests at all. And subscribe to my channel and I'll see you again.